Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me again. Tonight we have a stone versus stone comparison. I'm going with two high-end stones here, really to see what the scratch pattern looks like in comparison to each other. So these are both 400 grit rated stones. First off, I've got the Cheefarcut vitrified diamond resin stone coming in at a 400 grit. You can see there it's the 400, and it's going up against my unboxed or boxed, soon to be unboxed Naniwa Diamond Pro 400 grit stone. Let's take a look and see. We're going to be using the Victorinox Fibrox butcher knife, which I have recommended in my post below. This is a good knife, good kitchen knife in the $43 to $45 range. So I've done a lot of videos with this knife, and we'll be using this again for the purposes. I'll be taking microscopic images from the same zoom so that we can see the different scratch patterns, and we're going to compare these two stones side by side. All right, so we're starting out with the Cheefarcut, and one thing I want you to recognize is, yes, this is a splash and go stone, but it needs a lot of water to build up any kind of a slurry. And that's because there's actually quite a bit of the vitrified material here. And I'll show a comparison of the Naniwa, but this is how the stone arrived. I've used it once so far, and it worked great, but you get about 5 mils, I would say, 4 mils worth of sharpening material, and then a nice sturdy base plate, sturdy steel or aluminum plate that it's bound to. But in order to get a slurry, you have to use quite a bit of water. So we're going to start with this side here on the Cheefarcut. All right, so let's take a look under the microscope after we clean this off. and see what our scratch pattern looks like. I am going to remove the burr. As best I can. And then we'll take a look under the microscope and see what we have. Here's a really nice image of the Cheefarcut 400 under the microscope. Nice scratch pattern. And so now we've got the Naniwa Diamond Pro 400 stone that we're going to unbox here. I own the 600, the 1000, the 3000, and the 6000 of this stone. It's a great stone, which is why I purchased it. Comes with its own, you've maybe seen me use it in other videos, but almost it's a like a Nagura, or like a, not a resurfacing, I guess it's a resurfacing stone, but it's not a flattening stone. But it helps to abrade the surface if it gets blinded, or if the stone is loaded with metal material. So we'll set that off to the side. And then here is the Naniwa Pro 400 grit. It tells you on the bottom of the stone as well what grit you've got. And you can see that this stone has about 1 millimeter worth of sharpening surface, but it's extremely slow wearing. I haven't noticed on the short life that I've been using my other stones, I haven't noticed any deterioration of the stone, even though if you use this small Nagura stone, which I'm going to open up with this Spyderco. There's a small piece of tape. I'll open it up with my Spyderco Paramilitary 2 that I have with Maximet. We will put that in the link below as well. Awesome knife. But when you take this stone out and you use it, you'll see some of the coloration, which is the stone, the sharpening stone will abrade away. You'll see that, and that's still, I haven't noticed any of the stone getting thinner. It's extremely durable and hard material, this resin in the Naniwas. So one thing I am going to do, so that we don't confuse the scratch pattern of the 400 and the 400 Cheefarcut and the Naniwa Pro, is I'm going to take this up to a 1000 grit so it's finer, and then scratch it back down to the 400. So we will get the Naniwa 1000 out here and sharpen it on, sharpen this Victorinox Fibrox knife on it to give me a smoother pattern, smoother scratch pattern, so that when we scratch it with the 400, we can compare the Cheefarcut and the Naniwa 400s. All right. Let's remove that burr as best we can. I'll wipe this blade off. And we'll take pictures just to show the 1000 grit scratch pattern. And here is the refined scratch pattern of the Naniwa 1000. You can see the scratches are a lot smaller and finer as we would expect. All right, and now that we have the Victorinox Fibrox scratch pattern at the 1000 grit scratch pattern, we're going to go back down to the 400 using the Naniwa Diamond Pro 400 grit stone. All right. Let's remove the burr. I gotta say that just from what I can see is that the Naniwa 400 seems to have removed more material in about the same number of strokes. I did about 40 strokes, but it feels like it removed more material. just based on the look and just how much is on the knife and on the stone. Just an observation, but we'll take a look under the microscope and see what our scratch pattern looks like, and then compare the two scratch patterns. And so here you can see the Naniwa 400 scratch pattern, and we will look at that side by side by bringing in the 400 from the Cheefarcut. Here we have the Naniwa 400 on the left and the Cheefarcut 400 on the right. And from my observations, while they look very similar, I think the Cheefarcut 400 looks to be a little bit finer and have smaller scratches than the Naniwa 400, which would explain why the Naniwa 400 appeared to be removing more material on the stone. Just a subtle observation. Well, hopefully you learned something about these two stones. You really can't go wrong with either one. They both do an extremely good job, and they'll be able to cut through super steels. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with somebody that you think might like this. Damn for all, out.